Hola y bienvenidos a otro capítulo de mi canal de YouTube Español por Dentro. Hoy tengo el gran honor de tener con nosotros el ex embajador a muchos países de América Latina de la India, señor Rengaraj Viswanathan. Muchas gracias, señor Viswanathan, por estar aquí. Thank you very much for being here.
Gracias. Es un placer.
Bueno, pues el embajador Viswanathan es el principio experto indio en América Latina. Promueve la comprensión de América Latina y las relaciones entre India y América Latina a través de discursos, sus blogs, artículos y libros. Asesora a empresas indias en sus negocios con América Latina. Habla español y portugués también. Señor Viswanathan ha trabajado en América Latina durante 12 años en sus funciones diplomáticas en Brasil, Argentina y Venezuela. Como jefe de la División de América Latina del Ministerio de Asuntos Exteriores de la India, tomó iniciativas políticas sin precedentes que crearon un cambio de paradigma en las relaciones de la India con América Latina. Ha visitado cada uno de los 19 países latinoamericanos. Sigue de cerca la evolución política, económica y de mercado, así como las tendencias culturales. Ha leído varios libros sobre América Latina y ha escrito reseñas. Así que es un gran honor y placer tener con nosotros el embajador Viswanathan. Y aunque él habla español, pero domina inglés mejor, así que esta entrevista va a ser en inglés. So this interview is going to be in English. So Ambassador Viswanathan, firstly, once again, thank you very much for coming here and just gracing the occasion of gracing our channel with your presence. So thank you very much. Um, my first um, my first question to you, Mr. Viswanathan, is when I look at your website, but the one thing that catches my attention is that you are passionate about Latin America because you say right at the beginning, yes, I am passionate about Latin America. And then also, of course, you also talk about I adore the Latin American spirit. So, Mr. Viswanathan, my first question to you is what was your first introduction to Latin America like? How did you get into knowing about Latin America?
This was Love at the Time of Cholera, the book of Gabriel Garcia Marquez.
Right.
When I saw the title in the Barnes and Noble bookstore in New York, and before going to Latin America, I was intrigued. I saw what kind of title is this, Love at the Time of Cholera.
Mhm.
So I bought the book, I read it, I fell in love with the book, I fell in love with the author, and that led me to my love for Latin America and passion for Latin America. And I had read almost all the books of Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and I took it, my journey took me to other authors like Mario Vargas Llosa, Isabel Allende, Julia Alvarez, Carlos Fuentes, and I got lost in the labyrinth of Latin American magical realism, and I loved it. And for me, it was both a professional transition and a personal transformation. I wrote a book after my retirement. It's called as Malgudi to Macondo. As you know, Malgudi is the fictional town in the novels of R.K. Narayan, where the characters are typical Indian rural small town folks, simple, innocent, pious, God-fearing people. And I come from a village in Tamil Nadu, and the nearest town from my village is called Lalgudi, which is close to Malgudi. And I studied in Tamil medium, my whole school. Only when I went to college, my English medium started. And so I was brought up in this Tamil culture of R.K. Narayan, simple and innocent. And then when I joined the Foreign Service, I lost a bit of innocence through English and diplomacy and trying to understand international affairs and dealing with international power games. Then I joined the service in 1977 till 1996 when I reached Brazil. I was in this stage of loss of innocence in my diplomatic career. And then my third phase of life started in 1996 when I was posted to Brazil. I went to Sao Paulo. I went to Rio. I fell in love with Copacabana and Ipanema. I went to the bar called Garota de Ipanema. I lived out all that nostalgia of that famous song. There, my transformation took place from Malgudi to Macondo, from innocence to magical realism. I not only loved magical realism as a literary genre, but also it helped me to understand and deal with Latin America with its myriad complexities in politics, economies, and society. And that opened the key for me to understand Latin America, deal with them, and fall in love with them, and continue my passion since 1996 till today. I continue.
Wonderful.
I say that I am a victim of the charm and enchantment of Latin America.
Wow, and it reflects very clearly in your essays and the writings that you do, Ambassador Viswanathan. Because, of course, if anyone who follows Ambassador Viswanathan on the different social media platforms would be well aware that he writes a lot on various books that come out on Latin America, and thanks to him, I've been able to get to know many books about Latin America, and especially ones which are currently in vogue and which deal with issues in the current times that we live in. So he brings with him a truckload of knowledge gained through professional visits. And in fact, Ambassador Viswanathan, I would love to go back to your childhood because it's a fascinating story of yours when we look at. I was reading an article on the Hindu about you, and the fact that you came from a small little town in Tamil Nadu, and even now, and it's quite famous that when you go back to your hometown, you still roam around in bicycle, and you still lead that life of charm that existed many years ago. And coming from a small town in Tamil Nadu to becoming an IFS officer is in itself an amazing and inspiring story. So, tell us a little bit about your childhood, Mr. Viswanathan. How was it, and what were the struggles that you went through in becoming an Indian diplomat?
I didn't struggle alone. So, that's what happens. Actually, I come from a village. It's maybe about 250 people there. And they grow rice and sugar cane and bananas. It's a rural agricultural life. That's what it continues. But in my case, most of my friends, they stayed on in the village. Some of them continue in agriculture. Some of them, they are doing a little bit something more. So I was the one who got out and came to Chennai and to Delhi and then to Buenos Aires. So it's a great journey which I enjoyed. But it was basically, I think books played an important role till I studied in Tamil mediums. My dream and ambition was to become a Tamil poet. So I was very influenced by Tamil poems and both ancient literature as well as the modern poets. And that one, when I went to Latin America, that's where I think it got reignited with the Latin American literature and made me fall in love with the Latin America.
Wow, fantastic, wonderful. And yeah, I'll also put in the link of that article which I read in the Hindu in the description of this video, so that uh, people watching this video can also go back and read that article. It's a fascinating story of Ambassador Vishwanathan's rise to the Indian Foreign Services from the small little village in Tamil Nadu. And Mr. Vishwanathan, coming back to Latin America, and of course, obviously, Spanish is the language that is spoken in whole of South America, except probably Brazil and maybe Guyana. Yeah. So, how did you learn Spanish, Mr. Vishwanathan, and what were the challenges for you to learn a foreign language?
Uh, when we joined the foreign service, we are allotted a foreign language to learn. So I was sent to Portugal, to Lisbon, to learn Portuguese.
Right.
From there, I went to some other places. I forgot about the language till I got posted to Brazil. That's where I picked up Portuguese again. And then when I went to Venezuela, from there, I picked up Spanish.
Right.
Both are sweet languages. The Latin American version of Portuguese, the Brazilian Portuguese and the Latin American Spanish are more musical, more interesting.
Yeah.
But I tell my friends, how did I learn? I tell them that the best way to learn Spanish and Portuguese is through the Latin American method, the boca en boca.
Boca and boca. Yes. Mhm. So, in fact, Mr. Vishwanathan, you have served as the Indian ambassador in Brazil, Argentina, and Venezuela, and those are three countries that we in India know very little of. So, I mean, of course, we know Brazil through football and probably Venezuela through many beauty pageants that women over there have won. And of course, Argentina also through football. But I would like you to please share with us some interesting experiences that you had in your diplomatic postings in these three countries. How was the experience of being a diplomat in these three countries, being an Indian diplomat in these three countries?
The Latin Americans are very friendly, warm, nice people, and wonderful. They're colorful. They're fun-loving people, and their spirit is captured in this pop song of Argentine singer called Axel, which is Celebra la vida, segundo a segundo, nada se guarda, todo se brinda, celebra la vida. That's the best. So they don't just live the life, they celebrate life. And they have the perfect balance between work and life, and personal life and the professional life. That is something I learned over there, because in India, work is worship. You sacrifice comforts, enjoyment, and you save and look after other people. That has been drilled into our mindset. So for us, this exposure to Latin America is useful to learn how to balance life.
Wonderful. I think the Axel song, I think, encapsulates the entire life in just a few lines that you have mentioned, Ambassador Vishwanathan. However, if you can just like to go back to the question that I asked, that in terms of specific experiences of the three countries that where you were posted, how different or similar were Brazil, Argentina, and Venezuela to you as an Indian diplomat?
Actually, if you don't mind, I would like to deal with the region as a whole, apart from these three countries, because I have
Okay,
traveled in
sure,
all the 19 countries of Latin
sure,
America.
sure, absolutely, please.
Uh, what should be more interesting for your viewers, apart from the cultural aspects of Latin America, is that today uh, Latin America is business for India. Uh, India's exports to some of the Latin American countries are more than the exports to neighboring countries or traditional trading partners. Uh, this has opened the eyes of the Indian exporters and the Indian business and Indian policymakers. And this has caused a paradigm shift in the way Indians have started looking at Latin America. For example, last year, India's exports to Latin America was $22.5 billion. Our exports to Honduras was $273 million, which is more than our exports to Cambodia, which is $220 million. Cambodia is just across 1,000 kilometers, and Honduras is 15,000 kilometers away, remote country. You have to do 2 transshipments. The freight is more, but still we exported more to Honduras than to Cambodia. Our exports to Guatemala last year were $465 million, which is more than our exports to neighboring Kazakhstan.
Right.
Our exports to Brazil last year was $9.9 billion, which is more than our exports to Japan or France or Thailand or Sri Lanka or Nepal. We exported $5.2 billion to Mexico last year, which is more than our exports to Russia or Canada or to Egypt. Uh, and we export about $1 billion or more to Colombia, Chile, Argentina, and Peru. So at this rate, we should hit about $50 billion in the next 5 years or so. So this is remarkable. This has opened the eyes of the policymakers. And Indian companies are doing well. We invested about $12 billion in Latin America. There is a company called UPL, United Phosphorus Limited, from Mumbai. This is the largest Indian agrochemical company, largest Indian agrochemical company. But today, they do more business in Brazil than in India. In Brazil, they do $1.7 billion. In India, they do under $1 billion. And across Latin America, they do about $2 billion. There is a company from Noida called Mothersons making auto parts for OEMs. They have 24 auto parts plants in Latin America, mainly in Mexico and Brazil and Colombia. And they have about 20,000 Latin Americans working for them. And their turnover is about $800 million. And the Indian IT companies, about 24 of them, they employ about 50,000 Latin Americans. They are in almost all the countries of Latin America. And their turnover should be something like about $2 billion. So, this is something which, people don't believe unless you give out the facts and figures and statistics. So we have reached a new level. It's not only literature and football and carnival and beaches. Latin America is business.
Amazing, Ambassador Viswanathan. The figures that you have mentioned definitely do prove the fact that Latin America as a business destination for India is definitely on the rise. So, what do you attribute this rise to, Mr. Viswanathan? In spite of the fact that we are thousands and thousands of kilometers away, and And when we as Indians think of Latin America, the first thing that comes to mind is probably distance. Yeah. So, what do you think are the causes or the reasons behind these numbers that have come up in recent years?
This distance and the barriers of language, they're all in the mind. And business people know how to overcome it. Look at China. China is more distant than India to Latin America. They do $450 billion of trade with them. And we do 26 plus 28, $48 billion. So it's all concepts.
Right.
And not only that, we love Latin America as a market, as a destination for India's business. The Latin Americans also realize the importance of India for their exports. Last year, they exported $26 billion. And India was the 8th largest destination for their exports. In 2013, India was number 3 destination after US and China.
Mhm.
Today, Latin America exports more to India than to Germany or France or Spain or Italy or Portugal or even Japan. And so they have, the Latin Americans are betting on India as a large and growing market for their business. It's not only exports, even investment. There are about $1 billion of Latin American investment in India. And some of them are doing extremely well. For example, there is today the number 1 bread maker in India is not an Indian company. It's a Mexican company called Grupo Bimbo.
Okay.
They are the largest bread maker in India. They bought this modern bread and other Indian companies. Okay, they are one of the global leaders in making bread. They are in United States and many countries of the world. They come in and they are doing very well. And there is another Mexican company called Cinepolis. They are the owners, the 3rd largest owners of multiplexes in India. And soon they might become the 2nd largest. They have over 300 multiplexes in India.
Right.
There's a Brazilian company called WEG. They make heavy-duty electric motors.
Mhm.
They have a plant in Hosur, and they are doing very well, manufacturing in India for the requirements of India. They have software companies like, for example, there's a Brazilian company called Stefanini,
Mhm.
Argentine company called Globant, and Mexican company called Softec. All 3 of them. They have established global delivery centers in Bangalore and Pune and Noida and Gurgaon, employing over 4,000 people to serve their global clients. So the Latin Americans also started attaching importance to India. And apart from the trade aspect, India also finds that Latin America contributes to India's energy security and food security. At one stage in 2013-14, we imported about 15% of our crude oil from Latin America, mainly from Venezuela, also from Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, and Mexico. Latin America has surplus oil to export. They can export easily about 4 million barrels per day. And Venezuela has the largest reserves of oil in the world. So this source helps India to reduce its over-dependence on the volatile Middle East and diversify its sources of imports. So Latin America is important for India's energy security in the long run. It's not only in the fossil fuels, but even in renewable energy, like electrification of vehicles. You need lithium. Now, Latin America has over 60% of the world's resource of lithium. There is something called lithium triangle: Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile, which is over 50% of the world's lithium resources. An Indian company has just started investing over there. Plus other minerals and rare earths which you need for this renewable energy, you can source from Latin America. And India imported last year about over $5 billion of edible oil, vegetable oil, mainly soy oil and a bit of sunflower oil. Now, we have been importing for quite some time. India has perpetual shortage of edible oil. We import a lot of palm oil from Malaysia and Indonesia. So import of vegetable oil, mainly from Argentina and also a bit from Brazil, it helps us to reduce the over-dependence on Malaysia and Indonesia as part of our food security. And also, soya oil is any day better than the palm oil, for health reasons. And this is going to continue because we have perpetual shortage. And we also started importing pulses, dal, and so on. Again, India has perpetual shortage. We import about 5 million tons. Now we have started sourcing from Argentina and Brazil. And we also started importing fruits, apples and pears from Chile and Peru and Argentina. The thing is, in India, we have a crisis. Every year, India loses hundreds of thousands of hectares of agricultural land to urbanization, commercialization, and for residences. And we have a problem of water table in Punjab and Tamil Nadu going down. And we are not able to invest so much because the farmers are small. In contrast, South America, mainly Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay, Paraguay, they can bring in another 40 million hectares of land into agriculture, fertile land. And they have plenty of water. They have 20% of freshwater resources of the world in South America. And they do large-scale commercial farming with the latest technologies. So this is an agricultural powerhouse. So this is a great complementarity between India and South America in food security. And we also started importing gold. Last year, we imported about $6 billion of gold, which I say it contributes to India's marital security. We use a lot of gold in marriage.
Right. Fascinating. Yeah. Now, in fact, Ambassador Viswanathan, you have, I think, given the viewers who are watching this interview many different areas and many different sectors, where we have had relations with Latin American countries. And you talked about sectors like fossil fuel, oil, and other sources of energy. And you talked about many Indian companies also investing in Latin America. And of course, the numbers show that the trade relations are on the rise. However, are there still areas in trade or economy sectors which you still feel have not been tapped to their fullest potential to improve relations between India and Latin America in terms of trade?
Sure. You see, the Indian companies have started exploring Latin America only in the last 2 decades. So still we are in the stage of exploration. It is the same case for Latin Americans also, only in the last 2 decades. Earlier, we had our problem, they had their problems. But now in the 21st century, the Indian businesses have become global, more confident, reaching out to the world, and the Indian economy has been globalized. And the Latin Americans also started diversification from United States, Europe, and now they want to reduce their over-dependence on China. So they are also looking at it. So still we are in the stage of exploration and discovery of opportunities. And we keep surprising each other with the new areas. For example, one of the surprising things is we import crude oil from Brazil and Mexico, and we export diesel and petroleum products to Brazil and Mexico. We import raw sugar from Brazil and refine it in Kandla and Haldia and re-export the refined sugar to Middle East and Africa. I mean, these are all new things. And the Latin American companies also, they also do like this. Like they import what we call as API, active pharmaceutical ingredients, the raw materials for pharmaceuticals. They import from India. We are the second largest supplier of API to Latin America. So they make finished formulations for their domestic market and a bit for exports. So, these are all new things. The businesses are discovering complementarities and synergies.
Wow, fantastic. I think when we look at India and Latin America and Ambassador Viswanathan, the fact that you've mentioned that both the regions, have only started exploring this potential of bilateral relations in the last 20 years, how much do you think that on a governmental level can be done more to foster these relations, in terms of state visits or any other diplomatic or sort of a governmental level interaction? If what are your views on that, sir?
Government has started paying more attention to Latin America, but more needs to be done. For example, out of the 19 countries, we have embassies only in, I think, 12 of them. So we need to open embassies in the remaining 7 countries. And we need to strengthen our embassies. Most of our embassies are very small, just an ambassador and a second secretary. But we need more people. So we need more Spanish-speaking diplomats. Like you go to any Chinese embassy, they have embassies in every country in Latin America. And every diplomat speaks Spanish, or if they are in Brazil, they are speaking Portuguese, which is not the case in us. In our case, some of them, they speak Spanish, others don't. So we need more people. And also in India, we need a reservoir of more Latin America study centers academically to study the region, and more linguistic institutes to teach Spanish, because Spanish is for the 18 countries in Latin America plus Spain. And then there are over 40 million Hispanics in United States. So, so this is much larger than, say, the area of influence of French. So Spanish has become more important for business and communications. So we need more Latin America Study Center, more Spanish language institutes.
Great, wonderful. And as we head towards the end of this interview, Ambassador Viswanathan, I mentioned at the beginning that Ambassador Viswanathan does review a lot of books on Latin America. So for our viewers here in India, Mr. Viswanathan, if you can recommend maybe 3 or 4 or maybe 5 books on Latin America that they should read to be able to gain more knowledge and awareness about Latin America. So which of those 4 or 5 books could you recommend?
Well, I have a website called ambassadorviswanathan.com. In that, there is a section called books.
Right.
So there I have given the list of books I have read from each country in Latin America. Right. And in some cases, I have written reviews. Right. In other cases, I have just given the titles and the authors. Your readers can see them.
Of course, Ambassador Viswanathan, I'll definitely link your channel in the description. But maybe probably if you can mention your one favorite book that you've always loved reading.
As I said, love at the time of cholera. So that was the one which opened my eyes. I also liked Julia y el Escribidor by Mario Vargas Llosa. I have read all the books of Mario Vargas Llosa.
Wonderful.
Carlos Fuentes and Isabel Allende, Casa de Espíritus. I love them. And Jorge Amado from Brazil. I have read most of his books.
Wow. Okay, great, wonderful. So I think definitely make sure that the viewers do go to the website and find out more such wonderful books that Mr. Viswanathan has recommended and has written on in terms of reviews and other articles. And I definitely do recommend everyone to read that because that is like an ocean of knowledge for anyone interested in Latin America. So, with this, Ambassador Viswanathan, I'd like to close this interview. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your knowledge and experience of Latin America.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And thank you to my viewers. Muchas gracias por estar aquí y hasta el siguiente capítulo de Español por Dentro. Chao.